Hi everyone, and welcome into episode 2 of the Challenge to Champion show. On last week's show, I talked about the journey towards understanding with my life with cerebral palsy and how every one of you can go on your own journey towards understanding. Hopefully that leads to even more success and happiness for you in your own future. On today's episode, I want to talk about the concept of adaptability. That is something I have had to learn through simply trial and error how to figure out because of my life with uniquely God-given challenges. I have to adapt my life in every situation and experience, good or bad, that I encounter and take on with gratitude. From something as simple as getting dressed every morning, something absolutely everybody in this world has to do, or something as potentially complex as being a great teacher or broadcaster, something that a lot of people do, but not everybody. On both of those ends of the spectrum are two very important things, and they all have one thing in common for me. I must adapt my way of success at those and all things in between because of my unique gifts that a lot of times are called challenges. This isn't easy. I'll start by saying that. I have to adapt absolutely everything that I do compared to society's normal way of doing things. First things first, though. I'm not comparing what I do to the rest of society. That was just to give you a bit of context. I am thrilled to have this unique life that I do. So, back to how to properly adapt. It's specific to every type of situation. I still haven't completely figured out how to exactly do that properly in every situation I'm faced with. But it simply starts with being willing to do things differently. Now, that sounds cliche probably, but if you're not willing to do things differently, you will never be able to fully and honestly adapt your life as necessary for your own experiences. For me personally, let's take work for example, and my experiences in education thus far. I mentioned last week that I am an aspiring teacher, and up to now, I've had the opportunities to have teaching experiences through working towards a master's degree in education, but I've also had professional opportunities to substitute teach here in Wyoming. In those times of substitute teaching, I've gone into classrooms where Teachers have rooms set up for the way that works best for them as the regular classroom teacher. Some of them, though, I get in there and I have to change things around just to be able to move around the room. It's not ideal, but when is life with cerebral palsy and simply life with challenges ever completely ideal? So, I make as minimal adjustment as necessary so as not to disturb the general day-to-day flow of the classroom, but just enough to give me the opportunity to do the job expected of me to the best of my ability. So sometimes that's something as simple as just scooting a row of desks 2 inches one way or the other to give my wheelchair room to get by. Other times, it's for that one day I'm in the classroom rearranging student seating arrangements so I can simply move around the classroom freely. These are all decisions I am personally forced to make to be able to ultimately do my best professionally. They're simple decisions for me nowadays, but in the beginning, they weren't. I had a difficult time realizing I have to change around somebody else's classroom all because I need to have success in there. And keep in mind, when I accept a substitute job, the regular classroom teacher expects that the substitute will do their best to teach and guide their students in their absence. That can be daunting for anybody that has never done it before. And believe me, when I had my first sub assignment just about a year ago, it was for me too. And then add in the changes I just talked about, you can bet that this is something that in the very beginning made me lose a little bit of sleep. But now that I've had almost an entire school year under my belt, the COVID-19 pandemic kind of blew the end of the school year plans out of the water for everybody. Those experiences gave me the opportunity to figure that out. Even the closure due to the COVID-19 pandemic ended up being something that I could lean on positively. Yes, I wasn't in the classroom honing my skills as a future teacher and figuring out what worked and what didn't in even more areas of teaching and classroom management. But that downtime did give me the chance to really reflect. In what instances was I significantly challenged in moving around the classroom? What instances did I do well in that regard? And did any of those challenges that came up during the previous school year impact my ability to deliver quality instruction to students? In most cases, no, it didn't impede the work quality that I gave to students and put forth myself. But sometimes it did. Take science classrooms, for example, in all schools. The high top four people, to a workstation. Those stations can't be moved. Only chairs can. So there were times I'd be subbing in science classrooms, and I'd have to ask students to move so I could simply get around in some spots. That was a unique experience for me to have the very first time it happened, because I personally thought, I'm having students move so I can get around, and I'm sure the regular classroom teacher doesn't have that issue. But then again, I kind of gave myself a mental slap after thinking that and realized, Andrew, yes, the regular classroom teacher doesn't have that issue, but the regular classroom teacher doesn't have the mobility challenges that you do. And that also made me realize that with my mobility challenges, I have a unique avenue to expand on teaching students. It's not just the curriculum that's required that I have the gift for impacting students with. It's how to embrace and conquer life. I'm able to educate students in a way that's unique because of my challenges, because I see things differently. So with all these ways of having to adapt, having to move desks around, ask students to move so I can move easily around a classroom, those are minimal things, but even then, I can also figure out unique and fun ways to adapt instruction in the future. From something that's concrete in English class to write an essay on a book students recently read. I can figure out if that book potentially has any ties to real life and what I or other people with significant challenges experience, and add that on to the lesson to hopefully give students that much more of a substantial experience to draw from and ultimately take away the required knowledge plus a little bit extra that I am in a unique position to offer them. Now let's take a look at adaptability for those of you that aren't faced with daily challenges. Everyone, and I mean everyone, can adapt. You just need to figure out in what ways do you need to do that. Earlier, I said, I have to adapt everything I do in my life. For those of you who are watching that don't have challenges, you're blessed, probably, in a sense, to say you don't have to adapt absolutely everything you do. And that's probably a good thing, and ultimately the ideal way to go about things. With me not getting that luxury, I don't have a lot of advice in how to adapt things that I can't experience, such as being able to run. How do I slow down to go faster when I'm running so I don't tire myself out? I don't know that. But let me say this. Everybody has it in you to adapt. Look at what we've all had to do because of the coronavirus pandemic. We have all had to adapt. We have all had a recent, tangible experience doing just that. And most of us are still in that position, at least in some regard. So, while I don't have concrete tips and advice for how you can adapt to specific situations, I'll say this. Be open. And like I said last week on my show, be willing to understand. And if you haven't seen my episode on understanding last week, go to my page and check it out. Because all these episodes will end up tying into each other and hopefully being a resource for all of you to gain valuable knowledge and hopefully personal growth from. Next week, I am going to be talking about the idea and the necessary concept of trust. How does that fit in to my life? How does me trusting my challenges play a role in how I live my life? And then by extension, how does me living with the unique challenges that I do impact my ability to trust myself and others even with new experiences and experiences that I can't partake in without a little bit of help every now and again. That's why this concept of adaptability is of vital importance. We have to be willing to adjust and change as necessary to be able to do what we're expected to do from time to time, and that is help others. Episode 3 is going to be on trust 1 week from now. 2 weeks from now, the episode will be about acceptance. And while there are many ways to advance beyond acceptance, that's a nice way to button up these first 4 shows, I believe. And I'll touch on it in a couple weeks. But in order to truly genuinely have acceptance, you have to have understanding, which we talked about last week in episode 1. Adaptability, that we're talking about in this episode. Trust, that I'll discuss next week. And once you have all three of those, you have acceptance that can be a much easier thing to bring into your everyday life. So let me close the adaptability episode by saying this. Everyone in every situation can adapt. It might not be in a way that we want to. We might have to adapt more than that specific thing that we're intending to be able to adapt properly and have success. While everybody has to adapt, I'm not encouraging anybody to adapt things that work for you currently. If things work for you, fantastic. Keep doing what you're doing and being successful. But if you're faced with difficult times, figure out your own ways to adapt that specific challenge to hopefully better yourself and those around you, while also not sacrificing the experience that contending with challenges brings and the ultimate value that comes when challenges are conquered. Challenges are inevitable. When they come up, it is simple. Adapt. When challenges fall right in front of you, or even if they smack you square in the face, step back, take a deep breath, and be willing to figure out how to get past them, over them, under them, or go straight through the challenges. Sometimes a good old knockout punch to challenges is all it takes to overcome them. But be open to adapting if challenges are going to be something that sticks around a while, because ultimately adaptability is going to help, especially with the lingering challenge, be something that you can contend with as you need to, but also be proud that you're overcoming and ultimately being the best version of yourself that you can be, both before, during, and after the challenging times. Thanks everybody for tuning in to episode 2 of the Challenge to Champion show on adaptability. I'm Andrew Gallinger. Next week, we'll be talking about the concept of trust. That's trusting ourselves, trusting that the experiences we have are worthwhile and meant to be experiences, and even a little bit about trusting each other as people. I hope you'll tune in next week for that episode. I am excited to get it out to all of you. I hope you enjoy this episode on adaptability. And as always, if you miss any episodes, you can find them on my YouTube channel, Andrew Gallinger. Feel free to leave a comment. I'm always grateful when I hear from people that I've positively impacted with my unique outlook on life and God-given experiences that have allowed me to be better, always do better on the road towards independence and greatness. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week, and I will see you next time.